I'd like to call the committee of the whole for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, July 19th, 2016 to order with roll call, please. I do everything around here? Don't we have a clerk for that?
Kostler,
Here.
McAlpine,
Here.
Kraus,
Here.
Chapman,
Here.
Cavelli,
Here.
Dudek.
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jake, could you see if anybody signed in? We'll now move to the public comment section where the public is invited to address the committee of the whole for any reason other than on the agenda. Nothing? No one signed in for later business? Next, we have the consideration of the July 5th, 2016 committee of the whole meeting minutes. Were there any changes, edits? Nope. Nope. Consent agenda. And the same for the July 5th village board meeting minutes. Any changes, edits, corrections? Thank you. Okay, we'll move to a discussion regarding a multi-way stop control at Cary Street and Jandis Road. Hey, Eric.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This evening, the Public Works and Police Department would like to present for discussion and consideration for a new multi-way stop control configuration at the intersection of Jandis Road and Cary Street in our downtown. It's located just southeast of the main district, adjacent to the South Commuter parking lot. At this intersection currently exists a somewhat unusual configuration in which only 3 of the 4 intersection approaches are stop controlled. Typically, in an intersection like this, you would either see all 4 approaches controlled with the stop sign or 2 of the 4. So in this case, the free flow movement is eastbound on Cary Street. So that's on the left side of the screen, moving towards Jandis Road and then veering to the southeast. All the other approaches are stop controlled, as I mentioned. Jandis Road on the north approach is one-way southeastbound, and the parking lot has 2-way traffic control, although the parking lot itself is also one-way southeastbound. The review of this intersection was based upon staff observations of the traffic patterns at the location. Currently, when the cars that are awaiting to depart from Jandis Road, so from the north approach, they have to look to the right and behind them, and then also down a hill in order to see approaching vehicles, since there is no stop control on that leg. Photo in the second photo on the right there shows the approximate configuration and angle. The photo, the view on the bottom right was taken on site just to show the entire intersection itself. If it works. This computer is a little outdated, sorry. Anyway, the second photo on the right, if you review it from where the vehicle is situated, the tree line on the right does obscure the cars coming and approaching the intersection. Vehicular traffic is one of the typical parameters utilized for determining if an all-way stop control is warranted based on the Federal Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Device Manual. The volumes here in this case don't meet it from purely that perspective, mainly because the traffic is it's very peaky depending on the time of day, primarily when the Metro commuter lots are exiting, especially at the 5 to 6 o'clock hour. However, traffic does flow continuously through the intersection, and those visibility constraints do exist at all times. One of the conditions, optional conditions that the MUTCD does offer does include provisions where road users after stopping cannot see conflicting traffic and aren't able to negotiate the intersection unless conflicting traffic, cross traffic is also required to stop. So in this case, from the volume perspective, it's not required, but the MUTCD does give us some parameters which allow us to meet the requirements from the federal standards and post an all-way stop if we desire. So based on the parameters that are and the conditions that exist, engineering and police department do recommend the addition of that fourth leg in stop control. And Pat Fillon and I can answer any questions.
Eric, I travel through this intersection basically daily, and I understand the issue with it, but I guess I was looking at this in a different way. Like, instead of making it a four-way stop, is there any way that we could keep the traffic on Cary Street and Jandis, since those are the two high travel points, keep that going without a stop sign so that that traffic moves through, and then take the traffic from Jandis Road, the 266 vehicles a day? Is there a way to maybe have pavement markings or something to curb that so it'd be more of a T instead of a Y? And sort of eliminate the 40 vehicles a day out of the parking lot, you know? So it'd be a three-way with just one stop sign, and then all the rest of the traffic would keep moving.
We could do that if we were to close that entrance to the south commuter lot. So the only drawback to that would be, given that it's a one-way drive aisle through the entire parking lot, the only way in and out of that entire lot would be from West Main Street.
And do a lot of vehicles come in from Jandis to the lot?
I would say, especially in the early mornings, the majority of them would, because they're looking for the closest spot
Sure.
to the platform, and then it kind of filters its way southward.
I just, you know, it doesn't really make sense to me to stop the high traffic segments, you know, and get that moving, and stop the ones where there aren't that many vehicles, but that's just me, so.
Any other thoughts on this side?
So I travel through there regularly, and you do have to completely look behind you, and it's very dangerous. I've almost gotten hit a few times there. So when I saw this, I was very supportive of it. To what Trustee Kostler said, if you did change that intersection to it's no longer a Y but a T, what would that entail?
It would, striping, and then we would probably have to physically make some improvements to physically close off that approach into the parking lot. So some curb work.
Okay. Well, given the cost of that, I'd probably go with the stop sign for now, and maybe that's something we can revisit later on. So that would be, I'm supportive of putting a stop sign there.
Trustee Chapman, do you have any comments? No?
No, I definitely think we need to do something there because I know when it goes to those certain areas over there, you do run into that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I drive through the intersection a lot, and actually a lot of people coming from Cary Street slow down at that curb anyway,
Right.
just to try to anticipate what's going to happen, looking what's coming from Jandis Road too. So this might be, we've only had a few accidents, Chief, in the last 12 months, according to your report.
Yeah, I think we had two per year. However, one of them was the school bus. So, and I agree that the geometry of the intersection makes it difficult to look, you know, westbound on Cary Street. And I think it's gotten worse over years because the trees have matured and they've obscured the line of sight even more.
Whose property are the trees? Do we know? Is that True Values? Or that?
No, I believe they're actually in the right of way, but given the age of those particular trees, to thin the canopy at the bottom to improve the sight lines would kind of strip the majority of the canopy. So we would probably limit the viability of the trees long-term if we remove that much of the foliage.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, the elevation changes from Jandis,
Yeah.
and you're looking down, yeah, so you're trying to look up and down for approaching traffic going eastbound on Cary Street.
Okay. How would you implement the change?
If there's consensus to move forward with the stop control, we'd simply prepare a new amendment to the current village code for stop-controlled intersections. We'd add that location into the line items that are in that section. And then if it's approved and passed, then we would just add the stop sign and stripe a stop bar at the appropriate spot on that west leg.
And we flag it too.
So I would just
Because it's a new-
give them new warning and, okay, new intersection kind of a thing. All right.
There'd be subplaques on the other legs that would say all-way stop as opposed to just the stop sign by itself.
Okay. Rick, do you have any, did you say anything? You're okay with it?
I defer to the experts. Doesn't matter to me.
From the consensus of the board, I think that we can move forward with that, Eric.
All right, thank you.
Would that be, from a legislation standpoint, acceptable to bring to consent agenda, or how would you like it agendized?
I'm fine with consent.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
With
you.
you, Jim?
Thank you.
Okay, now moving forward to a discussion regarding 750 Kachina Rustica outdoor seating and other things. Hey, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. Village Board. The request this evening is from the proposed restaurant that will be occupying the former Galati space in the downtown location at 7 Jandis Road. I have a brief overview of the items that will be discussed here. I'll basically go through kind of a staff summary of the requests. We'll invite the petitioner to come up here and give some additional information, background as far as their operation, their interest in locating the Village of Cary. And then from there, we'll be able to answer, both of us will be able to answer any questions you may have or regarding the request. So in the staff report, which you've been provided this evening, there's a number of items which the restaurant operator is seeking approval for the location, including an outdoor dining approval for a new patio location of the restaurant, review of liquor license, video gaming license. Those typically are reviewed by the village board before the committee, and not the committee of the whole, but due to the number of items requested this, we figured it'd be best to have all items discussed at once versus multiple approvals or actions on separate commissions. And also seeking a review of a business improvement grant for facade improvement to the facility and discussion regarding the village's revolving loan fund and potential financial assistance through that program. First, focusing on the outdoor dining area. As proposed, the petitioner is looking to install a new patio area that'll be located to the south of the entrance to the restaurant space from Spring Street. This plat survey indicates where that location would be. It would be installed over the first 2 parking spaces in the parking lot that's between the existing building and the building to the south. Would be essentially a 3-season room with an outdoor, with a fireplace in there, screens on the outside of it, and wood materials to kind of extend the restaurant space along Spring Street. These elevations show on the left of the slide, we'll be looking at the front of the building from Spring Street. Basically, if you parked in the roadway looking towards the restaurant space, how that new area would be situated. So it'd be an extension of that street facade of the building. The second image is looking at it from the parking lot. If you're walking from the south to north along Spring Street, what the facility would look like. So you'd have the fireplace on that side of the structure facing the parking lot. These are a few examples that staff had reviewed with the petitioner as far as what the general atmosphere of the outdoor dining area would look like or would feel like. This doesn't exactly represent what this location will be designed as or constructed as, but kind of gives a feel for the flavor of the outdoor dining location that they're looking for. With the fireplace and screens on the right-hand image, you can see what a potential view would be from the existing bar area of the restaurant leading out to the space. And then the other two examples are showing the type of screen and atmosphere they would look for inside of that dining area. It would still be, even though it would have a roof over the area, it will still be open to the elements as far as a screen, from the exterior side. So it would be an outdoor dining area versus a formal building addition to the building. Village's code has specific requirements for outdoor dining, which are summarized in the slide. Basically requires the hours or operation of when the outdoor dining area could be occupied or utilized. Music has to be retained within the space. Physical barrier from the area to cordon off the seating area. So the design of this area wouldn't necessarily use a fence like other outdoor dining areas that we have within the village would utilize, but would be more of a permanent barrier from that standpoint. It would consume 2 existing parking spaces in the lot, which our code does say that they should not consume any required parking spaces, but in review of the petitioner's proposal with the downtown area, there is ample street parking in the location. Their hours would be more of the evening variety when the metro lots are also generally vacant, so there's adequate parking in the downtown area. The loss of 2 spaces would not negatively impact existing uses or other uses in the downtown area. So with staff's review of the request and looking at the proposed location, staff is recommending that the committee of the whole recommend to the village board approval of the request as presented for the outdoor dining area at this location. In addition to the outdoor dining area, the petitioners are seeking approval of 2 licenses or license requirements from the village. First would be a liquor license. They're seeking approval of a Class A license. The village currently has 6 other establishments within the village that have Class A licenses, all of which are similar restaurants to the proposed use. They have submitted an application, which staff is continuing to review for compliance with the village's requirements for insurance and other background information. Staff is recommending approval of the request for their license pending the review of that documentation. Similarly, the village has established rules and procedures for video gaming licenses. Petitioner is seeking approval of 5 video gaming licenses for the existing location. As you can see, based on the floor plan here, they would be constructing a room for video gaming that would be monitored via video so that the individual that's operating the bar would be able to see and constantly monitor what's taking place in that area. It would be cordoned off from the rest of the dining area, but would be still monitored per village's regulations. There are 5 other establishments that the village has previously supported for video gaming within the community, all of which have either Class A or Class I liquor licenses, similar to the one that's requested here. Based off staff's review, we believe it will comply with the village's regulations for gaming and the state's requirements as well, and recommend approval of the request pending submittal of the necessary documentation for review at a future village board meeting. The petitioner is proposing to perform significant improvements to the space, which include both interior and exterior improvements. As detailed in the staff report, they are seeking assistance through the village's business improvement grant program. The improvement grant program is a program the village recently adopted in the most recent few years ago, where we've provided assistance to businesses for exterior improvements. We've provided to date 3 grants for various businesses for replacement of signs or exterior improvements to buildings. In the proposal before you this evening, the petitioner is seeking to replace the awnings that are on the building along Spring Street and Jandis Road through the grant program. They're looking to perform improvements to the Jandis Road entryway that is shared between the restaurant location and the adjacent retail tenant space. So that'll be some improvements there to create more of a vestibule entrance to the restaurant location. And then finally, the other improvement already discussed is the construction of the outdoor patio, looking at significant improvements in design for that space, seeking approval through the grant program. The village established a maximum of a $10,000 matching grant for improvements, which is what the petitioner is seeking in this case, which would equate to about 15% of the project cost for the exterior improvements for this project. Staff, again, is recommending support of the request and finalization of the documents for future review and approval by the village board. Finally, the petitioners has requested consideration of funds through the village's revolving loan fund program. A little history regarding their RLF fund. The village in 1987 received a state grant for the establishment of a revolving loan fund. At that time, the village adopted a recapture strategy as was required for the management of the fund, and created a separate committee for the review of potential loan requests. From 1990 through 2006, the village issued or granted 19 loans through that time period, and we had established a criteria as far as what the minimum loan could be granted to businesses and maximum loans, minimum of $5,000 to maximum of $15,000, with the village having the ability to waive those requirements as well if lesser amounts or higher amounts were requested. The strategy also required that a 2-to-1 funding ratio be required, so that for every project that was presented to seek assistance for the program would put up twice as much of the money as what the village was putting into the project. In reviewing the loans that were actually granted, I would say 10 of the 19 loans were below the $5,000 minimum limit, and 4 of them were over the $15,000 loan, and a majority of them were probably 1-to-1 funding ratios or thereabouts. So for the applications that were reviewed by the village, we did up through 2006 did follow the guidelines that we had within the recapture strategy at the time. We did generally waive the requirements that were established within that recapture strategy. For the state requirements for the loan, for every $15,000 that is loaned utilizing the funds, the recipient has to create 1 full-time equivalent job. What that means is if you have 2 part-time positions that are created, they have to equal 1,950 hours in a calendar year. So 2 part-time positions that equal 1,000 hours each would equal 1 full-time equivalent position. 51% of the jobs that are created would need to be low, moderate income to qualify for the loan program. And the fund is replenished as loans are paid off. So the intent of the program is that we receive the grant, give loans out to prospective businesses or developments that qualify for it, and then the fund is replenished as those loans are repaid so that you can give loans out to additional businesses from that standpoint. All the loans that were granted by the village through the 16 years that the program was in effect were all repaid in full to the village, and then the interest that the village has received on the funds have increased the value of the funds, where we have about a little over $500,000 in the fund at this time. State staff contacted the state to discuss requirements to reestablishment, what the type of funding requirements would be, similar to what you see here. State basically indicated that the program offers a lot of flexibility as far as how it could be utilized, as far as the type of improvements. From that standpoint, if you want to be more restrictive than what the state allows, we can do that. The main requirement is that when we do create loans, that we have to charge some sort of interest rate. We can't give 0% interest loans. But the interest rate could be as low as 0.25%, if that was desired by the village. Funds could also be utilized towards public infrastructure improvements associated with new business expansion. So if you had a business that wanted to construct within the community, and one of the requirements was that they build a new roadway or some sort of public infrastructure to serve that property, the funds could also be utilized towards that as a matching grant, for those improvements. Other McHenry County municipalities have similar programs. McHenry, Richmond, and Marengo are three examples that operate similar programs and have similar requirements for the utilization of the funds. McHenry County also has a program that they operate for revolving loan fund as well. 750 Kachina is seeking approval or consideration of the use of the funds to assist with the restaurant startup. As mentioned, the village it's been 10 years since the last loan was granted by the village, and about 5 years since the last loan was repaid or last payment was made on the loan. So the program has been dormant for a decade at this point, which actually predates all the members of the current village board. The restaurant is seeking consideration of the use of the funds, whether it be for a specific dollar amount or just to see if the village would be open to the use of the funds for loans for improvements to the space. As proposed, they're seeking to do over $250,000 worth of improvements to the restaurant space, both interior and exterior. The use will create 7 full-time jobs and 22 part-time positions based off the information they've submitted. And based on the salaries that are proposed, staff believes that they would be eligible for the revolving loan fund program. This evening, staff is just seeking basic direction from the board as far as a desire to re-implement the program. If it's the proper time to discuss revitalizing the program or bringing it back to life to utilize the funds that we have. And if so, to establish a recapture strategy and program guidelines for the Village of Cary. Is it for this evening, consider assistance for the proposed restaurant, whether it be the dollar amount or discussion of that at this point as requested, or what the process may be for if we want to pursue revitalizing the program, establishing another committee to review it, or utilizing the ED task force as a review board, sounding board for recommendations to the village board for future improvements. With that, I'll turn it over to the petitioner for their presentation, unless there's specific questions that the board would like to ask at this point, but I'll be happy to have, after the petitioner comes up to present their information, present themselves from that standpoint, I'll be happy to answer any questions that come up at that point as well.
Would you be in agreement to hold all the questions till after the presentation? Because some of the questions you have may be revealed in the presentation. So that's fine.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thank you very much for taking the time to consider our applications as well as our requests for economic incentives. My name is Sally Lobue. On behalf of myself and my family, we take great pride in proposing this business for the Village of Cary. Just a little bit of background about myself and my family. We have operated small businesses for the last 30 years, be it my father-in-law, Filippo Lobue, who's also a partner here. My husband, Massimo Lobue, and myself currently run and manage Zaza's Tavola Italiana in Lake Barrington, along with another partner there. In addition to Zaza's Tavola, we are also part of the investment group involved in Incontro a Tavola, which is in the Arboretum in South Barrington. It is with great pride that I say we have done so without any loans or any debt as far as Zaza's Tavola. We've been profitable for the 12 years that we've been open, mostly attributed to very hands-on management style. Our families, both ourselves and the Vasta family, who is our partner at Zaza's, we've always been there. We manage it from our heart. We try to use our skills that we have in the business management to make it a very profitable place, yet very welcoming and inviting to the families that come, to somewhere you bring a date, go on a date night with your husband, your wife, also to celebrate any occasion that you may have. And I think that that's a great fit with the community of Cary. Our children have been coming to school here for the past 7 years. We live towards Algonquin, but send our children to Cary. And it's just a really great community. It's a great feel. When this opportunity presented itself, we really jumped on it. Just thought it was a really great fit, not only with what we've done at other places, but just for our family. And I think for the community, it's going to be a really great space. I know many of you are very familiar with the current space, and it's kind of has a little bit of a separation. So we just feel that, we would love the dining room to be a place where, you can come for any type of occasion, but really for families. If anyone has dined at Zaza's, you know that it's, my father-in-law's there, our partner's there, their kids have worked there, they've now gone on to college. We're there. We want you to feel that it's, you're dining in our home. And I just hope we're really given the opportunity to present this concept to Cary in its whole form as we've presented it. The dining room is going to be very rustic, very country-oriented. In Italian, we call it cucina povera, which is the type of cuisine you may have visiting a nonna in a little village up in the mountains. So it's very rustic, a lot of rich woods, a lot of stone, just a lot of Italian comfort food. An Italian meatloaf might be on the menu, as might a baked rigatoni, baked lasagna, but also some vegetarian options. A grilled polenta is wonderful. Kids menu, gluten-free options as well. It's kind of all part of what we're going to do there. In addition to the brick oven pizza, I know that's kind of been discussed as well. We are not fire burning brick oven, but that will be there as well as an option. So our average menu price probably be $11 to $13 for a total, cost per person to be about $24, which, would include maybe a glass of wine, a beverage, a dessert, an appetizer. And then, as you already know, we've put in our requests for the video gaming that would be on the bar in a secluded area. So that would be a little bit private from the dining room, which is very appealing to us as, we have small children as well. And then the outdoor dining area is a big part of the concept we've tried to present here with the Italian villa. The outdoor dining just really ties everything in together. It also provides similar dining options that what is already in the village. I know most of the other restaurants in downtown Cary have very similar options, so we just kind of like to present something else. And hopefully, as a whole, the downtown community of Cary can be a really nice alternative to some of the neighboring suburbs. I think people do, one thing I've gotten a sense of with Cary is that it's definitely, it's a very tight-knit community. People are very proud to live in Cary. They care a lot about the community. So I only hope that we can just add a really nice place in the downtown, and especially with it being in the location it's in, I think we're just going to make a really pretty space there. So, and that's it. So if you have any questions for myself, I also do have my architect, Tony Ryan, here, who can present and answer any questions about the patio and some structural design. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Of the full-time employees,
Yes.
7 full and 18
Yes.
part-time, how many are existing employees of yours?
They-
And will they include family?
At the present time, they will not be existing employees. Just for fairness sake to our other partners, we can't pull from what's already there. So they all will be new positions that will be paid. As family members, we are paid very minimal at like our current place. So it's, it's basically sweat equity is what we provide to the business. I think that's what's attributed to their success. So of the positions that you are given in your packets, those are all new jobs. Those are not counting family members.
Great, thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
I do have some more about the parking, but I'll wait until maybe somebody else
Okay.
has some questions.
I have a question about
Yes.
the revolving loan fund. We,
Yes.
as a village, the most we've ever granted before, I think, was $39,000 or
Yes.
so. And I was kind of wondering, that $125,000 is a little bit steeper than
It is.
I thought that was expecting.
Yes.
Well, from perspective, I don't know what the rest of the board is thinking, but I just wanted to throw this out. Is that $125,000 an integral part of your financial package to open up the restaurant?
It is not. We will plan to open in early fall, as I know we do have a sign that's posted. We don't have any other loans right now in existence. it's coming from our personal funds, so that's what we're putting on the line, for us. A loan would be, very well appreciated because of the fact that, we too are family, just like many of the people that live in Cary. So it's just a strain. That doesn't mean, we're not going to move forward with it. We definitely will move forward with it. We're just that confident that, the strain will be very short-lived, hopefully.
Any other questions?
Well, just to kind of go off of what you said, so what protection do we have should somebody default on a loan?
That's a question that we had, Chris and I had talked about a little bit earlier. I think that's something we have to ask our counsel about that.
Yeah, there's some homework to do with respect to the review
that you
panel
No, I understand.
associated with the decision-making. And the rules from 2006 are interesting, but there's obviously been a lot of change at Department of Commerce Economic Opportunity. Last I met with them regarding this loan fund was in 2012 in Springfield. And, it's just evident to me that it exists. It's there to be used, not to sit and build balance. And we just want to make sure we clarify the default aspect. But there's another component that is tied to really the state rules of prevailing wage that we want to clarify. We haven't had an ask for a number of years. We just want to make sure there's clarity to the business owner for what, if any, state rules that we don't control that might tie to the funds separate from just the due diligence that we would want to do. But we certainly will make sure we bring forward to you that data so there's some protections to the village. It is, obviously, it's taxpayer money. It's state funded. It's been built with interest, but we are the stewards of that. So we certainly just want to make sure we loan it wisely, and they've presented some solid business case for it, but we certainly will make sure the village is protected.
Okay.
Excuse me, if I may add to that, Trustee Cavelli, sorry, I have a friend named Cavello. So, that's a very good question. I know I asked that stuff to myself. I'm sure there's going to be some type of guarantee, but that's something for your legal department to review. But as I mentioned, when we opened Zaza's Tavola 12 years ago, we did it once again with personal funds. We've profited every year. So not only has myself and my husband managed that to the point where it is now. I mean, we've had a 25% food cost, and that, to translate what that means in the food industry, the average is typically between 33 to 35% food cost. So we have really managed it very conservatively. We've still delivered a quality product, and I think financially, that speaks a lot. And I know in moving with the second restaurant that was quite impactful for the loan. And that loan on that place is just about paid off. So this will go into 3 years. So whatever we need.
So the same thing with regards to terms, we can dictate what the terms of the loan will be, the length, that's something that we can find out from the revolving loan fund.
Yeah.
Whether we're dictated by that, what the rate is, what the term payback is, everything.
If you tell us to go research it, we will quickly and provide a bullet point sheet for the village board on, what are the options for you to offer. Obviously, there's got to be a win-win situation. But, we'll make sure that we're conservative and we respect the rules of the program, and that there's an administration process of it that's appropriate for
Right.
what you've outlined tonight.
Well, from an economic development standpoint, I think that we have those funds, and for lack of a better expression, you want to use it versus losing it. I don't want to all of a sudden the state come in and say, you haven't used this in 10 years. What are you doing? And I would love to see someone with a great business plan, to the extent of how much, and we've got to go down the road and figure that out. But I can just attest to what a great job. I've been to both of your restaurants.
Thank you very much.
You are numerous times in there. You do a phenomenal job. And
Beautiful compliment.
I'm very, very excited to have you join our
Thank
community
you.
here.
We're
So
very proud. I mean, we're very proud to be
I
able
think
to
it comes from the
support
time you
this
walk in.
opportunity.
Your whole experience has always been wonderful whenever you're there.
That makes us very happy to hear that. The best compliment.
I do have some questions about the improvement grant. Can I ask a couple questions about that? I'm just kind of looking at this, and again, it's a great program that we've utilized, I think, successfully with some of our businesses. And I see that the improvements, and you're putting a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
My thought would be, and I don't know, this is something where I'm not 100% sure of with our board. I'm looking at saying, if you're going to do just the awnings in the vestibule to begin with, I would only want to use those as the beginning, because the next year's when you start the outdoor. So I wouldn't want to incorporate that all together. I'd want to say, can you apply for 2 different ones? If you did one, and then the next year you started on doing the outdoor seating, and then you said, now I've got 56,000, but I have 4,000 left of the maximum 10. I'm just, if all we're going to do is, I added this up and I said, the replacement of the awnings in the entry vestibule is about 8235. So if our grant is, half in, that's about 411750 is the maximum we could lend out for the very first stage of it.
Yes.
And then revisit the next on the outdoor patio next year.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to anyone? Just from a standpoint of kind of allocating funds, I don't know how it's set up.
I think you might be confused. Brian might clarify. Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
what-
and that could be, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, if the will of the board is to approve up to a $10,000 grant.
Right.
I would include all 3 improvements at this point and set the limit to include those 3 phases of work.
Okay.
And we would just reimburse as those projects are completed.
Perfect. That makes sense.
Similar to what we did with Prime Meats downtown.
Okay.
They replaced the awning last summer and they finished the work for the entryway for the patio. We provided them 2 payments as the phases of the work completed.
Perfect, then that makes sense. Again, I just didn't want to put out money before the phases were done, if that made sense with that.
I think the other important point is also the will of the board from the standpoint of the gaming machine request, Class A liquor license. Are there any comments on those components as well? Glad to answer more details about the incentive ask, but certainly part of their business plan involves some of these other municipal, frankly, economic development tools. How do you feel about the liquor and the gaming?
I don't have a problem with that. What did Galati's have in
They
terms
have
of liquor
5.
license, A or I?
I believe by memory,
They have a Class A as well.
yeah, similar
That's what they
to,
had down there.
same with the
Yeah, I
gaming.
don't have any problem with it.
What's nice about your concept here is it's really kind of what we were looking for originally, is it isolated.
That's
I mean,
wonderful.
It's that, it's it's not in your face, it's there for your patrons, it's not affecting the rest of the restaurant. I think it's a neat idea that you're kind of putting it in its own space.
I mean, unfortunately, like where I live, in the municipality where I live, they allow a different style of gaming in places and it doesn't really look nice. I want to bring my kids there. I have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an 11-year-old. And, I mean, in most places, I don't think of it. This is really nice because it's kind of away from where people may not want it to be. And, for those that's something that they enjoy, so be it. It's there and it's private, and I mean, we were going to design it actually anyway that way. And it just so happened, I know that isn't compliant with village code, so it works out good.
How does the rest of the board feel about the gaming?
I know.
Brian, what was Tobacco Stop? What was their liquor license? Is it the same as this?
No, it's not. Theirs was a Class C license. And the issue from that location, the discussion we had for the board was more of allowing more gaming to occur at restaurant locations versus the Tobacco Stop was more of a tobacco business that we allowed them to have a liquor license, but they did not have a full-service restaurant. So that was the policy that was discussed at the board, was in trying to encourage more for restaurant uses. The other locations that have gaming approved there's 5 locations. 4 of them have a Class A license. One of them is a Class I license, which is the only Class I license we have in the industrial park.
Did you have gaming in either of your other restaurants?
No, we do not.
Okay. I will stake, I mean, I've been to your restaurants as well, like them. I was very excited to hear
Thank
you're
you.
coming into Cary. I'm supportive of everything, but I have to stay consistent. My feeling on video gaming is
Sure.
thumbs down, so
Okay.
everything else you're doing, I love.
And I respect that. I mean,
I like to stay consistent.
of course.
Any other comments?
Just, go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to mention, today I was looking at some social media about your business coming into town.
Yes.
People seemed excited, but interestingly enough, the gaming, a lot of people were against that in the business. And I thought it would kind of detract from the atmosphere of, it being a nicer restaurant with the noise. Obviously, I don't think the people realized it was a closed-off area,
Exactly.
but I'll echo the same sentiments. I've been to both your restaurants. They're phenomenal. Hope there's fried calamari there.
There will be. Yeah, you cannot get away from it.
But, interestingly enough, what if you don't get the video gaming license, is that a deal breaker?
It's not a deal breaker, but I just feel it does make us a little bit at a competitive disadvantage because there's 2 restaurants right there that both have it. And, I read maybe the same thing that you had read, and, we did think about this, and as a family, our family, it's a family place. We had that discussion too, and I think when it was presented to us at one of the other restaurants, the village as a whole decided against that, and we were supportive of that. But I think when a municipality already allows that, to not have it, and like I said, it's so discreet. I think unless we actually had to apply for this license and come before this board, I would bet most people that come to eat there wouldn't even know what was there. Because, there's not signage on the outside. So, out of respect for those people that aren't necessarily supportive of seeing that in the dining room, like what you read, I think people misinterpreted what this was going to look like,
As my point, and not to previously cut off Trustee McAlpine, but I look at this as a package proposal. There's some trade-offs from both sides, and some different viewpoints. Obviously, it sounds like from what I hear, a lot of great enthusiasm for the restaurant, the establishment. These details are details we would deal with any kind of petition. But from the standpoint of the loan request, the facade grant request, gaming, liquor is also a privilege. I don't hear any issues with the Class A at the committee tonight, some concerns with the gaming. But as we finalize, viewpoints about the loan amount as well as the facade amount, I think it's important to look at this as a package.
One thing that you may not be aware of, and it's a wonderful thing about Cary, and it's something that we're trying to promote, is that circular economy. So when you come here, there'll be some things that you don't have in your other places. We have a bakery that can supply your restaurant. We have food service companies that can do that. We have, cleaning services, and it's just a circular economy. And
that's how it should be. Small businesses, I think there's a little bit of a camaraderie that, at least, in running Zaza's especially, that we've kind of had. So we're really making it a point to, at the very least, give the local businesses an opportunity to bid on, whether it's electrical work or carpentry work, and,
That's great.
yeah, so that's something that's
thanks a
important
lot.
to us.
I look forward to the grand opening as soon as possible.
Thank
So,
you.
I had something to say, but not for the petitioner. I'm good with most of what you're saying here, but Brian or Chris, the revolving loan thing, I guess I was caught a little bit off guard because I wasn't aware there was a program like that. And I think maybe there needs to be some more education on it with the board. But one thing you said, Brian, that I wanted clarification on is you said that funds could be used for infrastructure for a business. So they could use for whatever sidewalk, road improvements. But let's say, is it the business that's doing that, or can we as a village use those funds?
We can use it as part of a larger development or part of a development. So if a new business or somebody want to construct a new facility in town or expansion on an existing facility, that requires some sort of public improvements, roadway, utilities, sidewalks, whatever it could be. It's a matching grant requirement similar to what we have here for loans, but it wouldn't be a loan from a standpoint that we would recoup the money back. It would be a grant that would be put forward towards that project to assist with the financing of those improvements, but the employer or the manufacturer business, whoever it would be, would also have to put up the same amount of dollars that would be coming out of this fund. There are, again, from the revolving loan fund, there's a couple ways you can utilize it. One is the loan program. The second is a grant, for the public infrastructure improvements. A third would be to create a community development block grant program where we would utilize the funds in a village's matching grant to generate a community development block grant that can go towards improvements or work within low, moderate income census tracts. So if areas that are, generally, have less income, than other census tracts within the village, you can finance certain types of improvements in those, areas through use of these funds.
Okay, so if I understand right, if we choose to use some of those funds for infrastructure as a village, then we have to match it dollar for dollar. And
Yeah, we can't use it from a village standpoint to offset our costs for a specific improvement, it's got to be related to a business
Right.
expansion.
But if we have a development.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, so it would be a portion of our costs going towards that, and then the developer would also have to match a portion that we go in. So if we put in $250,000, for example, they would have to put in at least that much as well.
I see, okay. Clarifies.
I will also add that when I did the village board, that was previous to this village board, when I got here, was excited to use these funds because there had been such a lag. And there's a lot of debate about, what size, what kind of things. Honestly, at the time, there just wasn't a lot of interest in the government aspect of the loan process. I don't know, interest rates have been fairly low, but it was viewed as complicated. We're glad that there's a possible participant. I do agree that you need to use it or you will lose it. When I was down in Springfield for legislative days for the Kenyon County Municipal League, I met in 2012 under the Quinn administration with the grant administrator for DECO because we were audited on these funds, which comes up, and rightfully so, every so often. He told me directly, y'all better use it soon or it's going to be gone. I'm surprised it's still here. I thought that on a bigger project for the acreage off of Three Oaks Road or possibly Janus and 14 on a bigger project, there might be a more sizable infrastructure spend on this, and there still might be. But I mean, I definitely think loaning out something is to our advantage in terms of protecting the rest of the assets. Again, the state can come in and sweep like, the current administration has needed to do because of the state budget issues. But I mean, I think we make a better argument for it by having it be used in some way.
Brian, can you tell me or show me where those 2 parking spots are going to be gone from?
Yeah, it would be, there's get the aerial up here. So if you're looking at the aerial photo here, the first 2 spaces that are below kind of where the point from the subject property points in.
Green and white car.
Okay.
Yeah, they're basically, it's an interior parking lot that's between the subject building and the property to the south. So it'd be the 2 parking spaces that face into the building on its southwest corner there.
And those are currently apartment residents parking?
They're dedicated to the restaurant from the property owner. So there are residents that park in there for the apartments, but those 2 spaces are dedicated to the restaurant from the
All right, and will we be having carry-out service from this restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
And from which entrance will the carry-out be? And the reason I ask that again is because currently we have 2 carry-out spaces at the front entrance
Correct.
and none, at the other side. So,
Eventually, we would like to offer it if it works for the business. Initially, we don't want to take in more than we can handle. So we're going to kind of be limited initially,
that's
not
fine.
have carry out.
So those 2
At some
spots
point,
will,
yes.
yeah, those 2 spots then out front will
Yes.
go back to being regular parking.
Yes.
Because a lot of times parking in there is gold.
Well, and as Brian said, that, they are part of our lease, so that's basically management part.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? I'm trying to get a consensus here. I know it's a package deal here, but I've heard some concerns regarding the video gaming. I would imagine that everybody's okay with the Class A liquor license.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the gaming,
Fine with it.
I think
Fine with it.
that seems to be going okay. The grant, the $10,000 grant to be dispersed in increments of the improvements.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the tickler here is the revolving loan fund. The ask is $125,000. Is there any discussion on that loan amount?
That's the only thing I'm not comfortable with, that amount and any kind of guarantees, like what Trustee Cavelli had brought up earlier in terms of recapture.
I just think it's hard to determine whether we're okay with it if we don't know the terms. That's where I'm at. It's not so much the amount. It could be 10,000. I'd still say, I need to understand how it's going to work. And I'm fine with doing some type of grant. I just need more information as to how we're going to administer it and
I
make
would
sure
like
we're
to
protected.
comment before the board continues discussion. I have reached out through Representative McSweeney's office. There's been change in administration at Department of Commerce Economic Opportunity. They have DECO's new administrator to call me any day here. that was just seated Monday of last week, and they're going to assist us on this project and a separate project that might involve VECO. And so I'm going to ask, what the current rules are so that we understand. Obviously, there's some administrative housekeeping to do with this committee, whether that be your ED task force that fills that role or some other mechanism at committee of the whole, but I think I'll be able to get on the back of an envelope the current terms that the state would be behind.
Well, I think, if anybody read the attachment, those terms are in there.
Right.
Well, we can
It does
determine
talk about the
that.
collateral requirements
Yeah.
and the personal guarantee is up to the board.
Right.
So you can certainly, they're going to have lots of fixtures, benches, restaurant equipment. I mean, there's a significant amount of fixed assets that they'll have to open the business. So you do have collateral.
Yes,
And from
and
the
I just want to make sure that we get a yes from the state, just so there isn't any, bureaucratic hiccup.
Yeah, and from the discussion I had with Department of Commerce Economic Opportunity earlier this year on it, they basically had told me that we have to adopt a recapture strategy, which they need to approve, which is the standards that was in the packet, basically outlines what those requirements are. And we have to charge some sort of interest rate on the loan. But it can be, as low as 0.25%. Previously, the village did not charge interest on the loans that was granted, which was just how the fund was administered previously. But they have provided guidance as far as what would be required from that standpoint.
I mean, from my perspective, Chris, you asked the question about the dollar amount. I mean, in my term on the board, we haven't had anybody ask for anything of significance. This is, in my opinion, probably the most visible piece vacant in our downtown. If I was going to put $125,000 anywhere, I'd put it here. So I'm all in on $125,000.
Me too.
Well, do you want to, Kim, where are you on the 125,000?
I'm okay with it.
Jim?
I'm fine with it.
Trustee Kraus is asking for
Well, as
lower.
long as we have
Lower.
something in writing
Right, to
for
protect us.
guarantees to protect us, yeah.
We'll be certain of that. But that's been asked, and I think that that's due diligence we can bring back to the board.
Right.
Okay, any other comments?
Just quick on the outdoor dining location, is everybody fine with?
I just put that on my list.
Yeah, just make sure.
I want to emphasize to the petitioner as well as the committee of the whole, again, I emphasize that, this is state program, so they have their rules. And when I mentioned earlier about prevailing wage, I'm not encouraging that, but I need to find out what that means in terms.
Define prevailing wage. I just
Yeah,
want to
sure.
something. And
Yeah, essentially, there's a schedule of labor rates that is mandated by state law.
Oh, the
And,
minimum wage.
No.
well,
It's not.
essentially, there's a schedule.
That's
Well,
the
no,
problem.
because that's why I didn't want to miss them. No, I didn't want to miss.
Well, for every job category, there's a specific wage that you have to meet.
Okay.
I'm not certain that how it applies. I'm saying that, we just need to be certain so you don't end up with any kind of unintended consequence, because the point is, if you privately execute this work, that's up to you, but when you get in the public space, there may be rules, and, I just want to make sure, we're all eyes wide open about that,
Do
because
you
you
mean
may.
as pertaining to the actual construction?
Yeah, it may increase your construction costs, and there may not be anything that we can do about that, and you may or may not want to do it, but
And that type of labor is actually very minimal. Most of the construction is really furniture and equipment. So I don't know if.
That may
obviously,
come
you
into
do
play.
your due diligence, but
Yeah.
Most of the budget isn't so much labor.
That
as
will
it
help.
is mechanical. I mean, there's not one piece of mechanical equipment there.
That
And
will help.
Investigating further, we may have to, the few pieces that are there, that budget may actually increase.
Understood.
One of the guarantees of the prevailing wage is that the workmen that you're using are going to be skilled labor.
I understand.
And so it protects
Of course,
you
it
and your
protects everyone,
investment.
Of course.
Is there any issues with the outdoor seating?
No.
No.
I think it's exciting. I think it looks great.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
I did bring it, I had our tradesmen, we're actually using a company that is doing barnwood. They work with their local artist, carpenter, that do barnwood. So these are just a few samples of what the paneling may look like.
Great.
Oh, somebody can make a
Love
YouTube
it.
video.
Love it. The
really
full
good work.
interior is being redone with this type of wainscoting, some Venetian plaster on the walls. Bathrooms will be a little freshened up. The exterior, we're planning to cover this, our bench seating. It's going to be really pretty.
It looks nice. It's
do
exciting for the
great
village
work.
of
We're
Cary.
very excited
Welcome.
to be part here. I mean, like I said, honestly, we needed this like we needed a hole in the head, but it's just, it just felt
felt
right,
right.
you know, it felt right. I think sometimes, you know,
Let it go.
we're guided in a
We're
certain
happy.
direction. You
Yep.
can't fight it.
That's
to do
great.
it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yes,
And
thank you very much.
Okay, moving forward to department head reports. Who's going to start? Chief?
Evening. I've provided some statistical information in your packet for tonight's meeting. Some of the highlights are that, as I've indicated previously, the activity, certainly traffic enforcement activity has been substantially similar to other years. We've seen a slight increase in enforcement activity as it relates to traffic stops that result in a traffic citation. And we've also seen a slight increase in the DUI and suspended driver license enforcement over the same period of time in 2015. There's been a significant decrease in some of the benchmarks we use in terms of activity in June as it relates to business checks, subdivision checks, and miles traveled. You can tell that if you compare it to May and April, there's a significant decrease. Some of that might be due to having 2 personnel on workers' comp, and we'll have 1 individual using FMLA and a second one using FMLA here shortly. I did also provide some of the average benchmark information as it relates to business checks, subdivision checks, and miles traveled, and the business checks and subdivision checks tend to be very similar to the averages, but the miles traveled tend to be a little bit lower than what would normally be expected. And I believe that that primarily responsible to the decrease in personnel. Our traffic crash experience in June as compared to June of 2015, we saw an increase. It was a 25.9% increase for June between 15 and 16, but there's been an overall decrease in traffic crash experience for year to date. So all in all, we're kind of consistent as it relates to our traffic crash experience. Some notable things that occurred during the month of June were the Metro train station had a damaged window that we were investigating, and interestingly enough, even with all those statistical benchmarks decreasing, we saw a significant decrease in burglaries from last year to this year. In 2015, we had 10 reported burglaries in the month of June. This year, we had 2. So sometimes you can't explain police work. Some significant dates that you should be aware of coming up here is July 27th. The Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police is going to have a Speed Awareness Day, and I know that Deputy Chief Nadenoff is challenging the sergeants on all the shifts to do something enforcement related on July 27th. July 29th, we're going to have our senior pancake breakfast that'll be held at the Park District. And August 2nd, of course, is National Night Out, and that'll be conducted downtown. And we've been receiving a pretty decent outpouring of support from the community. I really appreciate it. I try to send a letter thanking people. Today we had donuts, coffee delivered. The coffee delivered was from a female that had just turned 21, and she decided to deliver coffee instead of going out and drinking tonight. So that was very nice. So given the current state of some issues as it relates to law enforcement, I still believe that the Village of Cary and McHenry County tend to be an area that people like to support their law enforcement. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Just a few high-level updates from the monthly report for Public Works. One of the bigger projects we've undertaken this past month was to address some leaking in the flat roof portion of Village Hall. We found a cost-effective means to address that by resealing the top of the roof with a couple coats of fiber aluminum, essentially a paint, but it's a full sealant. So it will not only address a lot of those leak issues, but also it's now bright silver, as you can see in that photo in the upper right. So hopefully it reflects some more heat and be helping our energy use as well. Tree trimming, maintenance tree trimming has been going on village-wide with a lot of our crews on the streets, address low-hanging branches and blocking stop signs and so forth. We finished up our latest round of our requirements for best management practices for the MS4 program, and that's with regards to keeping for stormwater and water quality. So we do subsurface vacuuming and cleaning of all of our catch basins on a programmed basis. The well number 4 rehabilitation is still continuing. That was awarded a few meetings ago. So what we've done is the contractor has removed the casing pipe and finished their inspection of the pipes, the valves, the cabling, the pumps, and the motors. Initial assessment so far is that the pump and the motor are still in good condition, which is good news. That will help us on the bottom line with our budget. We will be replacing a lot of the casing pipe itself. And one of the main issues that kind of triggered this was a check valve that had an issue that had developed. So with that being replaced along with the casing pipe, we should have the well back up online in a few weeks. Operationally, there's no impact to the residents as the other wells in that sector of town and the network are able to handle the current demand, even with increased usage as of late with the heat and the dryness. Right now, we're running about typically about 1.4, 1.5 million gallons per day. We're seeing a few occasional spikes here and there up towards 2 million, but like I said, it's still well within our operational capabilities and capacity. Wastewater, a couple just regulatory milestones. We did pass our biomonitoring requirements. This is where we actually take our effluent and discharge and go to a registered lab where they have a whole farm of different species of minnows and other aquatic life, and they test their survivability and their how much they thrive in the water conditions that are discharged from our plant. And actually, our discharge did better than the control. The control had a fish die, and our effluent, none of them did. So,
Excellent.
not that I'm going to drink the effluent, but it's very high quality. And we also did conduct with no major issues and actually some praise from the inspector, our annual EPA wastewater treatment plant inspection for facilities. Projects, thermoplastic pavement marking program that the contractor is actually on the street now, moving throughout the town in various locations. I think they were out on 3 Oaks Road today. That's a pretty fast-moving operation. They should be done within the next couple days, weather permitting. Crack sealing will begin either later this month or early next month, and that's also in several locations scattered out throughout town. Mildred Avenue, the photo in the upper left, we did some ditch maintenance work with both staff and a contractor, basically to address some erosion issues in some high flow areas. The grasses weren't surviving, so we had some mud issues and some trap pockets. So we regraded the ditch to the previous elevations for correcting for flow, and then we actually used riprap in the bottom since the grass wasn't growing. So that's being completed, or just got completed today. Work order replacement system. As part of the current fiscal year budget, the department is implementing a replacement of our circa 1998 work order system, which will then allow us to more effectively track our operations, assign tasks to our operations, and more importantly, reduce the workflow, the number of steps it takes to not only assign work, but complete work, monitor the amount of equipment hours, labor, and commodities used. So we'll take that from about 8 or 9 steps down to about 4. So that's, we're excited about the advancements in the technology and the cost-effective technology at that. We are coming in under budget with that one. And then finally, Sunset Crest for the final grading for the restoration and the construction of that stormwater management facility. Our kickoff meeting is scheduled for next week with the contractor. And then we'll establish from there a schedule of when they're going to begin and the steps and the sequences. And we'll get notification out to the village as well as the immediate neighborhood. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Well, Eric, I had the opportunity today to attend the mayor's conference, the environmental committee, and our topic was the stormwater management. And I have to tell you, after those of you that weren't here for the meeting with the Sunset and Crest residents, it was very, very moving. And as the speaker started to talk about stormwater management in villages and cities here in the Chicago area, I felt that he must have been at our meeting, because he said, what happens in towns where you have this is residents don't talk about it. People end up moving out. They're afraid because if they mention it, their home values will go down. People, lose jobs because they're, and all of the stories that he talked about were things that we had happening here in Cary. And yet, I mean, we were basically, as a board, really unaware of the full extent of it. There is a program there with some more money available for mitigation, and there are some things that we're already doing with clearing the sewers, which helps us get extra points. And I just want to make sure that we're doing that and applying for that. And I'm going to give a copy to everybody on the board and your staff as well of the presentation today. It was very, very excellent. So we're doing great, and I told him that too. So
Thank you.
thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Jacob?
Thank you, Mayor. We've been talking a lot this evening about the ED task force here, and I think it's ripe for an update. We have a meeting coming up this Monday with the group. They've been busy. We've gone on some business visits with the ED task force members. They're also working on a marketing video here that we're excited to show the village board. Should have some more information regarding that video in the next few months. So, any questions?
Keep up the good work.
Is our trifold updated?
What's that?
The trifold?
The business
updated?
brochure.
The business? I think Stilling did.
Yeah, most of that information I think is still pretty
Still
current.
We'll
Yeah,
look at it, though.
All right.
we'll look at it just to make sure. So,
One other comment, go ahead. If you have something on this topic, go ahead.
Well, it's on economic development, so I don't know if can I bring it up?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm sure everybody's seen the sign on Selkie that says "Watch for sale." Who's marketing those? Whose sign is that?
that is a developer by the name of Brian Maud. And we've met with him here at the staff level just regarding some basic potential for the site, utility information. Both Brian, Eric, and Chris have been engaged too with the developer for that site. We're actually looking to have him at our ED task force meeting on Monday to talk with the ED task force.
So is it common to have someone, the site's not even sold, correct? It hasn't changed.
Essentially, letter of intent, and he's got a window of time to shop it.
He's the contract purchaser of the property
Oh,
at
he
this
is?
time. Yep.
Okay. So his development company is the contract purchaser, and during this period of time, he's putting a sign on there to see if he can develop any interest. And one would make the assumption that if he doesn't, his contract would go away and it'd be back for sale again.
And I will add, while Brian comes to the mic to fill in some blanks, Mr. Wagner signs I expect to go down, because I noticed that they had not been down. So you've got Mr. Wagner
It's
signs up, and
competing.
then
It's very confusing.
Mr. Maud's sign is on the corner. So I think that is just a timing aspect, but you're correct. I mean, he's out shopping for leads. They're not being brought in with the deal. We have seen a marketing brochure that I can share with you that we had immediate comment on regarding a conceptual site plan, which, immediately from a staff level created some feedback to him regarding what we anticipated the board would be interested in and not interested in. That's been shared with him. He seems, from my observation, and Brian and Jake can speak more directly because they met with him last, but he seems very interested in your feedback and ideas for the site. Not what sometimes you see, kind of a siloed my way or the highway approach. But, I'll just say it, I'm not excited about a bank on that site. That might be what is needed, from some perspective, but I don't know that that's what the village board would see to be a part of that site. I saw a restaurant pad on the site. That's great. I saw, and frankly, it's a marketing
It's a
document.
very conceptual marketing document for the set. Basically, he's actively brokering the site. He has a contract on it to purchase it, and is offering it to the development community to see what type of interest there is in the site from various retailers. We've given him a list of restaurants or users that have expressed interest in the area, so that he can contact to see if they'd be interested in developing on the site. We've given him a list of types of uses that, copies of the comprehensive plan as far as what the village would like to see for that property. And he's going through his development contacts to see, what type of interest there is for developing on that property.
Do we know how long the contract is?
He hasn't disclosed that yet. I haven't pressed on that, but, I haven't asked Mr. Wagner either. Mr. Wagner's been open and communicative with me regarding this, so I can attempt to find out if they want to disclose that. And while I say that about the bank, it's not to, get in the way of the conceptual, design process, but, unless, a bank came out of downtown Cary that could be redeveloped in some way, that might be a different proposition. But, we obviously have some vision of some great commercial, especially on that frontage, especially if, possibly it's more challenging in that back triangle as we've discussed. And when I say challenging, it's just, it might be a vision that we have to open our mind up to in the current market. But there's trade-offs, and it's progress in that you've got an active, fairly aggressive person shopping it, and, we'll continue to monitor it. We're contacting him every week to offer advice, assistance. We've given him our leads for other businesses that haven't fit well on village-owned property, or other deals that we have seen that haven't come to pass on other sites, other restaurants, other grocers, other specific village board, goals that we'd like in an optimal situation, as well as from some bounce back off the ED task force. So, we're infusing that, and he's infusing back, what the current market, appears to be interested in. So it'll be an ongoing process.
Are you going to get a copy of the contract, Chris?
The contract or the marketing brochure?
No, the contract. Essentially, any of us on the board could do the exact same thing this guy did. He bought it with a contingency, basically. So if he doesn't market it, if he doesn't get anybody to buy these pads from him and develop it during the end of his contract, it just dies and nothing.
Be my guess, yeah.
Yeah. So, frankly, he has no skin in that game whatsoever. Nothing. Maybe some earnest money. That's about it. It doesn't thrill me in the least bit, even though I know you and I have talked about it. You said you didn't like the conceptual plan, or it wasn't as impressive as we would have liked. But just the fact of the transaction that he did with Selke doesn't impress me.
I think, though, with this individual, we've seen some new energy, and sometimes it's good to have some new skin in the game. And so I'm optimistic about it in just meeting with him. He's excited about the property. He's been watching the property for a while, and it's not just that he just jumped in for the heck of it. He's had his eyes on this, and he thinks the time is right now. And so we're ready to work with him on it.
I hope he does bring something other than what you've seen so far, because it just, he certainly has more energy than Ted Wagner. I will give you that much, because Ted had zero. But in any event, it's not very impressive from what I hear so far, just given the fact that it's a contract sale.
One thing it's done, it's generated interest and sparked a buzz on Route 14, the other property owners heading towards town. So there are discussions going on, and looking forward to, this energizing and recharge and possible opportunities. So.
Thank you. Brian, did you have anything else to add?
Not to follow up on that, but just for the board's knowledge, so we did send out a mailer with the most recent water billing that went out to village residents regarding the update to the Unified Development Ordinance, kind of the kickoff for that process. We are holding a few workshops in early September, the commercial workshop with the commercial development brokers and developers that we've had interactions with would be invited to come in and sit down with our consultant to discuss issues that they've had or experiences that they've had with our zoning ordinances and sign ordinances. Also, we'll be holding a residential workshop that same evening for the same purpose, and then following that up with a workshop with the zoning board on September 8th as date. So we'd have 3 essential workshops with various members of the community and developers within the community from that standpoint to discuss villages development regulations.
Can you state that again? The interested parties that will be invited to that includes some of the development community, is that correct?
Correct. So the developers that we've had experiences with or talked with that have worked within the village of Cary in the past, or have just discussed interest in working with the village, also working with the brokerage community that own property within the village, issues or experiences they've encountered from that standpoint would also be invited. And then any residents that would be own property, obviously within the village, are welcome to attend the residential workshop and the zoning board workshop as well to voice their opinions on issues.
So blunt feedback from developers, attorneys, brokers, that's great. I mean, you want to hear the challenges, the suggestions, those sorts of things. It's an important way to funnel that, into a tangible outcome that, drives, development decisions that will ultimately be of the village board to set that code, but you're going to get some great feedback from different interested parties. So thank you, Brian.
How are we doing on the water meter replacement program?
That would be for Eric.
Yeah.
I think we outlined it in our budget workshop earlier this year. We're about a third of the way through the village. Right now, we're in the concentrating on the areas in the center of town.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
I gotta notice. Thank you. Okay, that'll be it for, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.